interesting notes from late yesterday, and of course Bob Thompson has been a part of this show a bunch. Former Fox Sports executive, including earlier in the week and last week, I think it was, late last week. Patrick Craig has been on. A lot of people about this, what can happen in TV deals. The Big 12 was looking for them, and of course they launched and got that one done early. So here's late last night. Here we go. ESPN wants to be the hub of all live sports streaming, even if it helps its competition. Now, what this is that ESPN has held conversations with leagues and media partners about building a feature that would link ESPN digital users directly to live sports games, including those that air on other companies' streaming services. Some of the key points of this, and you guys can talk along the way, please do. ESPN has talked with major sports leagues and media partners, launching a feature that would link users directly to where live sporting events is streaming. Would that make it less complicated?
I think that has the potential to do that. Think about it the way that if you have an Amazon Fire Stick or a Roku or, I mean, just kind of anything. Like if you've ever signed into an app and it says sign in with Google and you just click yes and it, you do your two-factor authentication and you popped up and now your Google account is hooked up to this app. Basically, I think the simplest way to do it would be they would just have the entire sports schedule of what you wanted. So say you're going to watch college football that day, and there's games on Fox, there's games on NBC, there's games on CBS, there's games on the ESPN family of channels. And so when you want to go stream that game, you just click on down to it, and because you've already logged into Paramount Plus or Peacock or whatever else you're going to do, you just hit it, and it would, take you to that app. And so while that does maybe take you out of ESPN's app, it definitely brings you to it for sure. So while you might be sacrificing some time spent viewing on some of that, I think you're getting a lot of app downloads in the
how does
process.
how does ESPN get paid here?
I think
how do they make money?
I think it helps increase their downloads. Plus, it keeps people on their app. Like once that game is over, they're going to go back to like, you okay? Game's over. Where I'm going to go back to? I'm going to go back to the ESPN app. But you don't have to hop all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. It sounds like a really great thing for sports fans. It also sounds like it'd be most beneficial to ESPN. And I don't know. I was reading one of the articles that said that they're. I don't know, and I wish I could remember it exactly, but they're not as worried now, the streaming world, that is, about, subscribers as much as they are just overall revenue. Mm-hmm. So that's part of what I would need to know, like how does ESPN get revenue off of this? There has to be a percentage that they would take from all of these entities because they're hosting them. Mm-hmm. And I understand that, well, no, they're just allowing more visibility and everybody would have to go through ESPN. But, yes, there has to be money made somewhere on their
they're
part.
Not just being friendly.
Yeah, they're not just doing it for no gain whatsoever. And even if that gain is that they are the central hub, okay, financially, what gain is there? Because there has to be some catch here. This is not just out of the goodness of our hearts, we want to be the central landing spot for all of the streaming channels. No, I mean, they would definitely benefit from basically being your splash page when you turn on your Roku or your Apple TV, like Paul was saying, and you have your Netflix and your HBO. And that would basically be that, but just launched by ESPN. And it would make things far simpler. And if you are a Pac-12 fan who's trying to figure out, hey, I don't have Apple TV, the way that it was explained was you wouldn't even need to have all of the streaming services, which is a part that I need some more dots connected because that doesn't make a ton of sense to me that there wouldn't be. Like, I understand, like, because there's no way you're getting everybody to sign up for every single thing to watch every single game. So this would alleviate that. But which ones would you have to watch? I mean, there has to be a catch somewhere of not all of us are just going to get the ESPN thing, and then none of us sign up for Peacock or for Apple or for, whatever other outlets. So that part I'm unclear on. But on the surface of, like, let's just say kumbaya, everybody wasn't worried about money, and everybody was just all worried about exposure and availability, which is a big part of the concerns, then, yeah, this sounds like the best possible thing that could happen for the Pac-12 if they were to land on a streaming-only deal. This sounds like it would be great for anybody that was on streaming game-wise, because instead of being on your cable box and flipping from ESPN to whatever other channels you have to watch these other games that are on, you'd have your splash page, and you could go from Amazon to Apple to ESPN Plus, Peacock, and bounce around like you're on regular cable. But that's the thing, though. This is just regular cable.
Yeah, no.
Isn't that what it is?
Yeah. Key points. Two other ones. The actual media partners have not yet been determined. There's no timeline on when a feature would launch. Right. It could also involve global streaming services, direct-to-consumer regional sports network products, and aim to make ESPN the TV guide. And I was going to use TV guide as an example. This is one of the key points of live sports. Well, I asked. Go ahead.
The RSNs need something.
Well, yeah, because we saw the story earlier this week on that.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, Bally Sports is going belly up, and it's not working out, and then they've got some other ones that just are not doing it. They can't all be NESN or the Yes Network, but which are owned by the leagues or the teams. But yeah, there's a lot going on. Root Sports is a problem. Yeah.
Yep. So I asked Bob Thompson earlier today, and I texted him. I said, "So what does this mean?" He says, look at it as though ESPN bought a food court in the mall. The food court will have a variety of different chains, and you can buy something from several, or you can buy something from just one. It simplifies your shopping experience by having them all under one roof, but doesn't necessarily give anyone an advantage over anyone else. Also, he added, but first, ESPN has to convince them to come to their food court and get them to agree to give them a portion of their sales, which is what we discussed about. They're not just doing this to be nice.
Yeah.
They're doing this also to have some way of making money. And that last paragraph, or that right there, tells you how, if in fact it would work out, that's how it would work out.
So I would assume the easiest way would be if you sign up through ESPN for any of these other things, they would get a cut of it. But if you don't, then they wouldn't. Because if I just sign up for Peacock and watch Peacock, and I'm not using ESPN's service, and they don't get a cut of that guy. But if they get a cut of the guy who's like, yes, this is super convenient for me. Now, the other thing I think it'll do for ESPN, and this is something that finally, Smokey, and we've been fighting this battle in our business for a long time. Advertising used to be sold, especially in radio. Everything was kind of on like an overall number, especially for audio stuff was, music was, the big country station, the rock station get the big number here. Well, now since you can listen to any song you want whenever you want it, or in the case of Max Olson and Drake here, even if you don't want to, you don't really need music radio as much. So the real metric, and it should have always been this way, is time spent listening. And so, or time spent viewing. Live sports has that over everything else. Sports content has that over everything else. That's what we do. I mean, and if you want proof on this, how many of you from outside the market here in Waco, Texas, watch our show and know our commercials by heart because you watch through the commercials? That's also a benefit to ESPN because people will spend more time on their app, therefore watching the commercials through a little bit longer. Which is increasing value because that's how more and more ads are being sold now, because I can point to you on our YouTube. I can go to our YouTube stats right now and tell you what an average person's time spent viewing any individual thing is. And on the live stream is about 40 minutes, which is unbelievable. On, a short little 8-minute video, its average is about 6 minutes, which is great because you watch through some of the ads. So that's good for people in that space. So that's how they'll make a little other money, or they're betting that they would.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, it sounds all great, but there's still some questions that need to be answered because, as that article very clearly states, you want to talk about throwing stuff out there and seeing how people react. I very much feel like that's exactly what that story
Floating
was.
a balloon out?
I think that was a major balloon float last night when that dropped. I don't think that was anything like, hey, this is coming. There's no concrete evidence to say that that's happening anytime soon, just that the idea is being kicked around. And I just feel like the timing, given what's kind of out there right now, that was let's see what this reaction to this will be. And I don't know. I feel like most people think the idea is great, simplify everybody's life, but there are some dots that need to be connected, like I said, of like, how much is ESPN wanting to take out? And if you're Amazon or your Apple or your anybody else who's streaming, I mean, business-wise, how much of an effect does that have on what you're taking in otherwise if you just do it on your own? Like, is it beneficial to go and be one of 6 other streamers or however many streamers. And that's the thing, too, in the article. No one signed up for this. There's no agreement. There's nothing in place. There's no like, hey, this is coming in September of 2023. Nothing like that. It's just simply an idea. And, of course, ESPN would want this. They'd be the center of the sports world, even more so than they are right now. And they'd also be getting a little sliver of the Amazon subscriber who is a Prime member but didn't sign up for necessarily the whole ESPN package. All of a sudden, they're on the ESPN app because they want to access the, so, yeah, from their vantage point, it makes a ton of sense. I'm not sure about for the rest. And I'm not sure, I get wanting to have it all in one place, but if you are just let's say a Pac-12 fan and you've got Apple TV because that's where they eventually land or something, do you have the need for all of the rest of it to Peacock and Paramount and whatever else other channels people might land on? Are you that much of a college football fan? I think plenty of people would be. I think there'd be a number of people that wouldn't be, and so this might not be of interest to them. So, yeah, it's an interesting idea. Not sure how realistic it is in the very near future, but it is interesting. We'll say that.
It is something that came down yesterday evening, and again, I waited until a little bit later in the morning because Bob Thompson on Mountain Time, and that's the answer or the quotes that he gave me.
Well, a couple of Pack people were like, I saw like Canzano, like the big eyeballs,
yep.
like, oh, look at this, as though it was going to be, potentially one of their big answers that they were looking for, they being the Pac-12. I just feel like if that was the case, that would need to happen a lot sooner.
I asked Bob that.
Yeah.
I said, is this something that could help or affect the Pac-12? And he said, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just the timing of it. If it's not even near to being a real thing, it's just very much a floated idea at the moment. Their TV deal's coming up. Like, you're not going to get all of this together and everybody on board, and they still have to sign the TV deal. And then, hey, in a couple years, they're playing ball under this new deal. That just seems like it's not really super connected. But in the future, the longer-term future, that does seem like it would be something that could answer solve a lot of problems visibility-wise for everybody involved who's in need of that.
All right.